You know, when there are those special moments where if you could bottle it up and relive it over and over again, you would do it. Last night's victory in the swamp was certainly one of those moments. Welcome into another episode of the All Kinds of Weather Forecast. I am your host, Chris Yanes, here in the heart of Gator Nation, and we have a victory show for you today. We're going to talk all about the thrilling victory against LSU last night, and we have breaking news. Florida now has their quarterback commit in the 2025 class. We'll talk about that. We'll recap what was one of the most successful visitors weekends all season for the Gators. And of course, we will talk about what this win means going forward for the program. But before we dive into all of that, I've got a quick favor to ask. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss a single episode of the All Kinds of Weather Forecast. And don't forget to like this video. If you're as fired up as we are about the victory this weekend, hit that like button down below. Your support means everything to us. It helps get the content out to Gator Nation. And we'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment down below. Sound off. Tell us your reaction. We're starting to read these comments. We're going to read last episode's comments. So if you want yours read, drop it down below. Your reaction to the Gators' victory over LSU and what this means for the Gators going forward. And if you're listening to one of our audio platforms, please take a moment to rate and review the show. Leaving a 5-star rating helps us reach even more listeners. We truly appreciate it, Gator Nation. And of course, we've got to shout out our sponsors of the show. 401k Generation, the wealth management company that helps you invest today for your future tomorrow. Their team of advisors is committed to providing guidance and education for your 401k plan and its participants. And they also offer a range of enrollment solutions tailored to meet the unique needs of your company's 401k plan. Whether it's saving for your child's college, investment advice, or even your retirement, 401k Generation's team of advisors makes getting to know you their top priority. Their advisors will tailor a path to assist you in navigating life's financial milestones and reaching your financial goals. 401k Generation, building stronger futures one generation at a time. For more information, contact them at 866-998-5879 or visit their website at 401kgeneration.com. And also shout out Heads and Tails. So you can see we're sporting the Heads and Tails hat and the Horns Legend polo for the men that is in store. And right now we have got something for our listeners. You can use the code IAKOW30 for 30% off in store here in Tampa, Florida, or online at theheadsandtails.com. And they even have an exciting event for Gator fans this weekend on Thursday night of this week, November 21st, in the Heads and Tails store. It is their annual Sip and Shop event, which goes and supports the local Tampa Gator Club. So make sure you get out there, you have a couple of brews on tap, do some shopping, get ahead of the Christmas holiday season, and use that code IOKW30 to take advantage of 30% off. Shout out Heads and Tails. Great, great partners for us. All right. The Florida Gators. Let's get into it. The Florida Gators upset the number 21 LSU Tigers 21-16 in what was a thrilling victory in the swamp. It was an incredible night to be there as a fan of this amazing program. And, I think we're going to lead the show off with that. To shout out the fans for once again showing up and showing it why Ben Hill Griffin Stadium, Steve Spurrier Field, is one of the best atmospheres in all of college football. For the 11th consecutive time, the Florida Gators sold out the stadium and provided an atmosphere which truly helped carry Florida over the finish line in this game. There were 28 third down attempts by LSU in this game, and I could say on every single one of them, the crowd was with the Florida Gators in this game. Coach Napier made sure to actually open his press conference by complimenting the fans for what they did in this game. And just being there, it truly was an unforgettable night. By far the best atmosphere yet for a Gators game this season. And I mean, just the Tom Petty, this tradition of Tom Petty after We Are the Boys after the third quarter started against LSU 7 years ago. And this was the first time actually since LSU has returned to the swamp for a game, they did not play their third quarter traditional song over it. So the vibes were good. If you haven't seen it, I'm sure you can go online on social media and find the clips. But what an atmosphere that we provided for the fans, for the players, And also for the recruits that were there, we talked about the laundry list of elite athletes that were in attendance for this game. If you have not already, go back and listen to the old episode. We highlighted it on the show, but an atmosphere that shows that Florida can be an elite program when everything comes together. And the fans who have been through it all, the toxic fan base, as they were labeled by some people out there in the media, for wanting just excellence and the Gator standard to be met, despite the fact that we're only a measly 5-5 right now, continue to show up every single home game. Of course, we have our final home game next Saturday against Ole Miss, and I would anticipate that to be the 12th consecutive sellout if history or recent history is any indication. But the fans need a lot of credit for this. A lot of credit. They continue to support the program, and we need to continue to support the program no matter our thoughts on Billy Napier, no matter our thoughts on the administration. The players deserve it, and we as fans, we need to continue to bleed that orange and blue. It's hard for me to even fathom not showing up for home games, not cheering on our team, not cheering them on, running to have them win this game, just because some may want a coach, expedited, have his exit expedited. I just think the fans continue to show why they are among the best in college football. So truly, shout out Gator Nation for providing that incredible atmosphere in the swamp on Saturday. Let's talk about the game. I mean, Florida took the first lead of the game. Beautiful back shoulder throw from DJ Lagway to Elijah Badger for a 23-yard touchdown. It was a great moment for the Gators, who came out with a lot of energy in this game. On the opening drive, LSU was stuffed on 3rd and short. They went for it on 4th down in their own territory. Dejon Johnson, who played all 93 snaps in this game on the defense, came up with a huge stop there to stop the LSU drive. Guys like him were the story of this game, who were playing injured in some respects. DJ Lagway provided the spark that we all hoped that he would in this game. And there was a different game plan. We said that the game plan for Lagway was he was going to have to sit back in the pocket and deliver dimes down the field, and he did exactly that. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we can dive deeper into this game. Now, after that touchdown to Badger, they answered back, LSU, with a 14-play, 84-yard drive to tie the game at 7. LSU that was the only touchdown for them in this game outside of all the field goals that they kicked. In the second quarter, Trey Smack and Damian Ramos traded field goals, went into halftime, 10-10 at the half. Overall, it was a pretty tight first half. I mean, Florida certainly had its moments, especially on that opening touchdown drive. LSU was able to move the ball effectively and keep things close. And at halftime, it was all knotted up. Second half is where things got interesting. LSU came out, took the lead. It was their only lead of the game from another 45-yard field goal by Sergio Ramos to put them up 13-10. The Gators didn't flinch. That was the thing, though. Every time LSU got a big third down conversion, they converted 15 of 28 in this game. The defense bended but didn't break. And that was ultimately one of the biggest highlights of this game, is that the defense came up with some huge, huge plays, including a big sack fumble on Garrett Nussmeier inside his own 10-yard line. The Gators were able to get a couple of those on this day. The defense got the ball back with excellent field position after that moment, and it was all about capitalizing on the opportunity of that. Florida answered with a 55-yard field goal from Trey Smack to tie the game at 13. On the ensuing drive, they got pressure on Nussmeier, sacking him on a critical 3rd and long, forcing LSU to punt before the 4th quarter, and that's when the Gators took over, and DJ Lagway delivered one of the greatest plays, one of the greatest passes you will ever see from a quarterback to show exactly why he is him. He connected to Badger on a 36-yard play that put Florida down to the 1-yard line. Jacoby Jackson would punch it in on the next play to give the Gators a 20-13 lead with under 14 minutes remaining. If you have not seen that play, I tweeted it out earlier on my Twitter account at Mr. Chris Pitts. DJ Lagway steps up into the pocket as both edge rushers beat the tackles, and with the flick of a wrist, delivers an absolute dime. And if you're going to notice, if you look closely, Chimere Dike is streaking down around the 15-yard line, wide open. May have actually even scored if the ball was delivered in stride. But Lagway's like, no, I'm going to take the tougher throw because I can make it. There are probably less than 5 to 10 quarterbacks in the entire country, college and professional ball, that could make the throw he made there. And that is truly why he is the special player that he is. So that what a big moment in the game to give the Gators the 20-13 lead. They of course would not look back. LSU was not done though. They managed to drive the ball down the field. And what was a really the time management from LSU at this point was bizarre to me. We'll talk about the disparities in the statistics here in a second, but LSU had an 8+ minute drive that resulted in them kicking a field goal to only cut the lead to 20-16. But there at that point, there was only a little over 5 minutes left in the game. Florida, though, sealed the game on what was reminiscent of the Auburn 2019 run by LaMichael Pirine. Jaden Ball had his moment where he was able to take the toss sweep, burst through the left side of the line to go 55 yards, and that was curtains. It was a huge momentum shift by Ball. The crowd was loud. It was the most explosive play of the game, and he showed impressive speed to be able to get out of the edge. The blocks by Hayden Hansen, Elijah Badger, and that left side of the offensive line sealed it. Incredible play, incredible moment with the game on the line to not allow LSU to get the ball back, only down four, and instead to put the game away to give the Gators the 11-point victory, 27-16. So I mentioned the statistics of this game. And if I were to hand you the stat sheet of this game blindly, no score at the top of it, just the two teams and their respective stats, and I said, by looking at this, who won the game, you probably would have thought LSU blew the Gators out because Florida and LSU here, LSU 25-13 on first downs. LSU converted 13 of 24 third downs versus Florida's 3 of 9. LSU was also 2 for 4 on fourth down. LSU had 392 yards of offense to Florida's 339. They ran the football for 130 yards to Florida's 113. If you remember, that was a key to the game. I said Florida needed 200 yards on the ground. Florida had 7 penalties for 55 yards. LSU only had 3 for 25. And the biggest eye-popping stat of them all, the time of possession, 41 minutes and 43 seconds to 18 minutes and 17 seconds for the Florida Gators. Unbelievable that LSU had the statistical advantage in nearly every category you can imagine, but the Gators were able to come out and win this game. So how did they do that? Key moments in the game. Florida, 11 explosive plays. They picked their moments when to strike. And the other thing I'll say is, we talked about that LSU got into third down 24 times, Florida only 9. And that's because Florida, for the first time I can really remember, I thought Billy Napier and his staff did a good job of calling a game plan to not get behind the chains. There was very few moments in this game where they were behind the chains. They of course had a couple of runs on second and long where a lot of the fans will groan at, but that was a lot fewer and far between. Florida they had 43 plays on offense, 26 of them were passing plays, only to 17 rushing attempts. So Florida in this game clearly, leaned heavily on DJ Lagway's ability to throw the football downfield. The majority of the explosive plays, of course, were all from basically passing in this game. The lone exception, there were a couple of exceptions. Montrell Johnson did get a 10-yard rush. Jaden Ball had an 11-yard rush in the first half. Jacoby Jackson, a 20-yard rush in the first quarter. And then everybody remembers Jaden Ball's 55-yard touchdown run in this game. But Florida did it through the air. And they were very opportunistic in picking their moments to strike. And the fact that Florida was able to really slow down this LSU team. LSU did not hit the big plays like they had earlier in the season. LSU really, their stars, in a lot of ways were kind of non-existent in this game. Garrett Nussmeier's stat line wasn't bad. 27-47, 260 yards, a touchdown in the game. He did have, of course, the strip sack fumble. That was the lone turnover in the game. Florida didn't get that +2 like I thought they needed to get this. But, you really look at it. They really limited LSU. Kyron Lacy, 3 catches, 43 yards. To me, wasn't a major factor in this game. Aaron Anderson was their leading receiver, 7 catches, 72 yards. He did have their lone touchdown in the game. Mason Taylor was huge on some of the crossers, on some of those third down and longs that LSU was able to convert on. But the story is that Florida just hit the plays when they needed to hit them. And I said it before the game plan had to be You weren't going to win this game with DJ Lagway's legs. You were going to have to win with his arm, and you were going to have to protect him. DJ Lagway, 0 sacks in this game. Florida, 7 sacks against an offensive line that was lauded as one of the best in all of college football, coming into this game with only 6 given up on the season, comes up with 7 of their own in this game. Florida absolutely dominated them at the line of scrimmage. Shamar James, 2 sacks. Tyreek Sapp had a sack. Caleb Banks had a sack. George Gums Jr. had a sack. TJ Searcy had a sack. Cam James also had a sack in this game to total 4-7. I mean, incredible effort. Florida also 11 tackles for loss in the game. Now, while I said LSU may have led this game in rushing, their average rush attempt was 3 yards a carry. Florida, while they only had 113 yards rushing, double of the half of that, of course, came from the Jaden Ball run. They averaged 6.6 yards a carry. So Florida, I thought they were going to have to run the ball in this game. I thought they were going to have to actually control the clock, get those turnovers when they were needed, throw it all out the window. Because when DJ Lagway, you have an elite quarterback like him, you can win in multiple ways. And we'll talk about it when we preview Ole Miss. I think that this game script may not work necessarily against them, but on this night, it worked against this LSU team. So a lot of credit has to be given to this coaching staff for understanding the situation that you had a banged up quarterback. You had to protect him. You had to put him in situations where he could make plays with his arm. And they did that. So shout out to the staff for that. Shout out to DJ Lagway for playing an incredible game. I mean, the guy's really special. I mean, we said it going into for weeks now. You should never, and this still remains to be true, you should truly never keep a coach for a player. But it's easy to understand now why people have the opinion that you should in watching DJ Lagway. DJ Lagway is a him. He was a top 5-star, potentially generational quarterback, and the throws that he is making right now completely make you realize that's all true. He's 3-0 now as a Gator starter. 3-1 as a starter because of the Georgia. He started the Georgia game, which they did lose, but he didn't finish that game. I mean, could you imagine for a moment in a universe where DJ Lagway doesn't get hurt in the Georgia game, what could have happened in that one? Who knows? But DJ Lagway now 3-0 when he finishes a football game as the Gators quarterback. He has now beaten 2 SEC teams in those 3 starts. He gives the Gators their first win against a ranked opponent all season. I mean, the future is truly bright. And he said it in the press conference after the game. He's had guys across the country, both in high school and potential transfers, talking to him about transferring to Florida because they want to play with him. There's a Lagway effect happening right now in Gainesville. And people remember back in 2006 when Tim Tebow, the influence that he was able to carry to convince guys like Brandon Spikes, like Percy Harvin, like the Pouncey twins to come to the University of Florida because they wanted to play with Tim Tebow. He's that kind of athlete. And I really believe now there's 2 main reasons why Napier is going to remain the coach in 2025. One is financial, but 2 is truly the fact that they see a generational talent Lagway. And if Napier is fired, he very likely could transfer. And so here's the thing now. When you have a guy like Lagway, you've got to use it now to your advantage. And we'll talk here in a second about the impact on recruiting when we cover recruiting. But to sum it all up, DJ Lagway won this game for Florida with his arm and his big play-making abilities. This is a guy next year going through a full spring. I don't want to sound hyperbolic here, but he could be on Heisman watch list because of his true ability. And if Florida brings in some great transfers, some great players to play with alongside him, a lot of things can happen with him next season. So exciting times. I think this is something to really look forward to. Hopefully he continues to get healthier as the season progresses here. Maybe we'll get a much healthier version. He certainly was not anywhere near 100% for this game, but Shout out to him for gutting it out and for playing this game. Defensive side of the ball, really quick, I want to cover Elijah Badger too in the receiving core. Elijah Badger was 6 catches, 131 yards. His touchdown, the catch early in the first, setting the tone. But of course, that touchdown or the catch to the 1 yard line that set up Jacoby Jackson's go ahead score. Elijah Badger coming back from injury didn't skip a beat. Shook. There was no signs of rust with him. Talk about two really great transfers that Florida brought in. Chim Dike had 2 catches for 47 yards in this game. A little bit more pedestrian of a stat line than what we're accustomed to seeing from him, but still a great player. Two guys that we are so lucky to have because obviously Trey Wilson has struggled with injuries. Now he's done for the season. We wish him a speedy recovery and hopefully have him back next season to be that leader in the receiving room. But these guys, the transfers, I mean, amazing finds by this staff. Amazing job coaching them up like from Billy Gonzalez and have made a huge difference on this team. I mean, DJ Lagway is a great player, but you also got to have great elite receivers. And these guys are playing like it right now. And unfortunately, they're going to be done after the season. I believe Florida, you'd like to see guys like Aiden Mizell, maybe an Andy Jean, a Tank Hawkins. Of course, we all know we're going to have Ronell Brown the third coming in as a freshman, but so you would like to see some high school guys come in and actually step up. But I do believe we're going to have to hit the portal for 1 to 2 receivers again to really feel good about this receivers room. But the staff has shown an ability to do a really good job of getting these guys in the portal. They brought in Ricky Pearsall, they brought in Chim Dike and Elijah Badger, respectively. Now, all these guys, I mean, I think will all be catching passes on Sunday based on what we've seen with them in a Gator uniform. On the defensive side, you can't talk about this game without mentioning the Gators pass rush. I mean, I talked about it. 7 sacks on Garrett Nussmeier. They were all over him. George Gums, huge sack in the third quarter. I mean, another talk about great transfer evaluations. A guy from the MAC conference was playing on Tuesday nights last year at NIU, comes now to the big bad SEC, earns a starting role on this defense, and has completely lived up to it. I mean, this guy was playing tight end a couple of years ago. Now he is dominating guys off the edge. I mean, he was responsible for the strip sack on Nussmeier inside their own 10-yard line. He made the big sack in the third quarter that gave the ball back to Florida. I mean, he has played absolutely lights out for this squad. And the other disparity stat in this game, 93 plays for LSU to Florida's 42. 93 to 42. I mean, the defense, it's amazing they didn't tire out. I mean, there were Traqueezy Bridges, Jordan Castell, Bryce Thornton, Deshaun Johnson played every single defensive snap in this game. Absolutely amazing stuff from this defense. A very gutty, gritty performance, holding them to 3 yards per rush, not letting them hit the big plays down the field, really making them drive the length of the field. It was a bend but don't break effort from these guys in this game. And you look at the linebacker room. Shamar James had to step up. We all know Pup Howard was out in this game. Jaden Robinson, who started in his place, stepped up too. I mean, he had 7 tackles on this game. Really just a lunch pail type player. Billy Napier was incredibly complimentary of his effort after this game. Another guy that I think is going to be a staple in this linebacker room for years to come here. Shamar James, I mean, 11 total tackles, 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss, had 2 pass defended. He actually, if he would maybe drop back a little bit farther in coverage, may have had an interception in this game, similar to the one he had against Miami. But Shamar James probably played his finest game of the season for the Gators, and we certainly needed it in this effort. And Miles Graham, 7 tackles for him, played a pretty good game too. Now is really, I think, becoming a big rotation piece for this defense, for this linebacker room. Aaron Childs played a lot in this game as well, had 3 tackles for himself. I feel really good about this linebacker room for years to come if they're all here. As long as these guys, Shamar James, Miles Graham, Aaron Childs, Jaden Robinson, even Pup Howard when he gets back from injury, Florida's set at the linebacker room. They've done a fantastic job of flipping this room since they've arrived here a couple of years ago. And it's why this defense is shown so much improvement this year because the linebacker room struggled last year, especially when Shamar James went down. I mean, if we had Shamar James last year late in the season, Florida probably wins 2 or 3 more games. He was that much of an impact player when he was out. And I think that the secondary certainly deserves a lot of credit in hanging in there. They did give up a lot of big passing plays. I think that's kind of where if you're going to nick Florida's performance today, Yesterday, it's the defense. I mean, they did give up quite a few third down conversions, 13 of 24 to be exact. But, Traqueezi Bridges graded out as the highest corner. I mean, this guy is Mr. Versatility. He can play corner, he can play star, he nickel, he can play safety. He's played every position on the defensive backfield this season. And I really think that, he, without him, I think the things could be really spooky for Florida back there. But he has been a godsend for this team. And hopefully we are able to get maybe Devin Moore back before the end of the season. We don't know his prognosis. Certainly, we already know we're not getting Jason Marshall back, but he's so versatile that then, because you can maybe play a Bryce Thornton and Jordan Castell back at safety, then you can move him to corner. And you've got guys like Aaron Gates that have played very well at the nickel spot alongside Sharif Denson. They've got some options back there. And this is a young secondary with who they're playing. Dejon Johnson, we all know he was in the class last year out of Gaither High School down here in Tampa. I thought played probably one of his best games as a Gator, maybe his best game. 4 tackles on this game. I mentioned the tackle for loss that he got on the opening drive against LSU. He's playing, Billy Napier said he's playing banged up right now. Love the performance from him in this one. And then the defensive line to being just run stoppers. Desmond Watson graded out his finest PFF performance game of the season. Finally, good to see Big Des get in there and do what he does, blocking holes, keeping the guys from busting one in the second level. Caleb Banks, I mean, this is a guy who was another great transfer take by this staff when they first arrived here a couple of years ago. 3 tackles in the game, 1 for loss, 1 sack, 1 forced fumble. He's going to play on Sundays. And it's a matter if it's this year or next year, but I do believe Caleb Banks will play on Sundays. And then finally, I'll finish off recapping, talking about Cam Jackson, who didn't really show a lot up in the stat sheet here. It only shows that he had 2 tackles on this game, but he was in every play. He was, definitely getting penetration in the backfield, which allowed guys to get back to Nussmeier and get those sacks. I mean, he basically cleared the holes for guys to get back there. And if you go back and look at the tape, he made the difference in that effort. So Cam, shout out to you. It was great to meet you after the game. He's an alumni of the All Kinds Weather Forecast show. We certainly appreciate all he's done since playing in orange and blue. And this game was personal for him. We posted that Neil interviewed him and after the game. You can go back and find the interview on our Instagram page and on our YouTube page here. But this game is personal for him. LSU told him he wasn't, big enough to play in the SEC. Goes and plays at Memphis for a couple of years. Florida gives him his chance, and in Cam Jackson's final season as a college football player, probably got his favorite win in his college football career. So really happy for Cam. Really happy for this defense, and then obviously this whole team for what they were able to do in this game. And I think too, just so now we've got to look forward, right? We've got to look at what this means for the Gators going forward. We're 5-5, and let me just say right now, I mean, everything feels really good today. The vibes are good again in Gainesville. They're not perfect because 5-5 is not the Gator standard. It's not the Gator standard. We're 3-4 in SEC play. That's not the Gator standard. The Gator standard is to be in the running to go to Atlanta to play for SEC championships and have a berth in the college football playoff. Florida has 5 wins right now. We should have anywhere from 8 to 10 wins right now. That's the Gator standard. We've got to get back to that. And Billy Napier in year 4 has to be there. Period. There's no, before the season, I said 6-6 can get him back. And that was really what the rumblings we were hearing from the administration. And everybody talked about the fact this was a fairly difficult schedule and has been a difficult schedule. Maybe not as difficult as maybe we originally thought, but still, nonetheless, Florida has to be competing for a college football playoff berth next year. I mean, really, it's playoff or bust for Napier and these guys. So while this is a great win, we have to keep our eyes on the bigger picture here. And that is, if we're truly now saving the buyout money to invest in NIL so we can bring in the best transfer portal players, so we can bring in the best athletes out there in the high school ranks right now, then let's do it. Let's go all in. We're at the poker table now. We've got all these chips that we've now saved because we're not folding our cards. Cash them in. Let's go for the house. We've got to see it. And, there's going to be staff changes this offseason. I think people have already alluded to that on a lot of the message boards. A lot of the murmurs out there is that part of this deal with Napier is that he's going to have to make some changes, probably hire an actual play caller and truly relinquish those duties next season and make some other tweaks here and there. But Florida is going to, it's playoff or bust next season. Now, for this season, our chances of making a bowl game have exponentially gone up. Florida, plays Ole Miss this weekend. They opened up as a 10.5 point underdog. That line, I think, is now down to 9.5, depending on where you're looking at it in some of the sports books out there. Florida's clearly an underdog against Ole Miss, at least a two-score underdog. Lane Kiffin, this was the coach that every Gator fan wanted to be wearing orange and blue next season. It doesn't appear that's going to be the case anymore. And he's looking for a college football playoff berth. If Ole Miss beats Florida and Mississippi State at 10-2, they're in the playoff. So Florida has a chance to play spoiler next Saturday. They also have a chance to clinch bowl eligibility for the first time in 2 seasons and give them a chance at maybe salvaging a winning season. Because after Ole Miss, Florida plays Florida State. Right now, Florida has an 81.8% chance, according to ESPN FPI, to beat the Noles. Florida State plays Charleston Southern next week at home. Likely gets a win there. They go into that game 2-9 against Florida. That's their bowl game at home. Florida has to win that game. It's a must win. That is, but that, I mean, you could argue outside of Samford, that is the worst team Florida will play on their schedule. Kentucky and Mississippi State probably could beat Florida State, would be favored against them on a neutral field. Would have to, I'm going to ask Dustin to look at the all kinds of weather forecaster model to see if that's the case. But if I had to bet, I would believe that Florida State probably is not favored to beat either of those teams on a neutral field. Certainly not LSU, who we just beat at home. So I think Florida's in a good position now to make a bowl game. This weekend is kind of you're playing with house money. Can we get that seventh win? Get that sixth win, and by virtue of them beating Florida State, our seventh win, guaranteeing the first winning season since 2020. I mean, look, we beat LSU for the first time since 2018. And I talked about the horrors of what this game is sometimes for the Gators. Some wacky, wonky things happen. The wacky thing was the stat sheet indicating that it was lopsided in one direction when it really wasn't. But in the 50th game since the Marco Wilson shoe throw, Florida gets a huge win at home. Could this be the turning point? Marco Wilson's shoe throw was the turning point of the downfall of Florida the last couple of seasons, 20-29 since then. We're 1-0 now. Maybe in the turning point. We'll see. We'll see going forward. We'll see what happens. We'll see if we can maybe get a little bit healthier for Ole Miss this coming week. We'll have to look out for the injury report, but in the short term, this is great for getting a bowl game. This is great for potentially getting those additional bowl practices that this young team could use for next season, giving us some of that momentum. Long term, okay, we've had a tough week. Now it's time to look for the future and how we can build toward it. And by doing that, we got to look at the recruiting. We've got to look at recruiting here. Florida had an incredible recruiting weekend. And hot off the presses now, 4-star quarterback Trammel Jones, who decommitted from Florida State last Friday, immediately scheduled an OV to Florida, and is now committed to the Gators as of this evening. He's the number 21 quarterback according to the On3 industry rankings, a consensus 4-star athlete out of Jacksonville, Mandarin High School. In his playing career thus far, he is thrown almost 7,200 yards, 75 touchdowns to 21 interceptions, an impressive showing for the youngster. And I mean, he's 6 foot tall. Definitely on the shorter side. He does not have the body type of DJ Lagway, but has an ability to be very mobile. Accuracy, not great, 59%. And I think there's a lot of translation between what your high school throwing percentage, completion percentage does translate to the college game, typically speaking. It translates from the college game to the program too. You really kind of you are what you are. You are what your completion rating says you are. But this is a good take in the sense that it keeps a homegrown talent. It allows Florida to recruit Mandarin and Jacksonville, who has a ton of guys right now that are looking to potentially commit to Florida. I mean, we all saw over the weekend where Jamie French, whose teammate, 5-star Texas commit, had a great visit and may want to play with his teammate. Also noted that he wants to play with DJ Lagway. So this is a good take for a variety of reasons. Homegrown talent. His teammate, obviously, Jamie French is a guy we would love to have. You need to take a quarterback every cycle. Florida has only signed one high school recruit since Billy Napier arrived in 2022. That was DJ Lagway. We all know what happened with Rashada. We signed Lagway in 24. We've got to sign Trammel Jones here. And now we have Will Griffin for 2026 already lined up. So this provides now a competition for the day, let's say Billy Napier's still here in a few years. Now you've got your quarterback competition of the future between Trammel Jones and Will Griffin here out of Tampa. So exciting to have that. Hopefully it's the kickstart for some other guys to come to Florida because Florida desperately needs it. And I think if you're looking ahead of who potentially is the next commitment for the Gators, there's two guys that come to mind here. And, one is Daniel Pierre-Louis, who is a Florida State commit, but after now the Alex Atkins firing up at Florida State, there's a lot of buzz that he was already trending to Florida, but maybe now makes the move to Florida out of Waxahachie, Florida. We'll see. He's an interior offensive lineman, 3-star kid. Pretty good athlete, though, but actually runs track at Florida or at Waxahachie. So that's a guy that I would look out for. The other one is Steven Shivers out of Brentwood Academy in Tennessee. And he's looking at Vanderbilt as well as Louisville. May still take his visits there, but had a great visit this Saturday. I mean, and I love the take. Was a Georgia commit for the long time, had recently decommitted there. That's the next one that I could see coming for Florida. But beyond that, Dallas, you look at the receiver room for Florida in this game. And we're going to need to get some receivers too. So I think that there's a lot of opportunities here to expand the board late. And if Florida is able to get any of these big visitors to pop for Florida, Joseph Mumbachu also left saying he had a really good visit. He's going to be a December decision, though. I think Florida's back in it for him at least. Name offered 5-star commit for Ohio State. That Florida put themselves back into here. That he said he had a great time with the atmosphere. We noted that earlier at the top of the show. That's a guy that we've got to be looking at here. Name offered for Ohio State, somebody that wasn't really on Florida's radar until he came to visit here. It was kind of shocking that he did, but if we can get him, that would be huge. Those are the guys that are going to make the difference. Like Florida, like right now, like could they get a top 15 class? Yes. But if they're not getting the guys like the Neem Offords, the Jamie Frenches of the world, the Dallas Wilsons here out of Tampa Bay Tech, he's actually going to be returning next week for an official visit to Florida. Those are the guys that want to hopefully play with DJ Lagway. And if you get those guys in the class, then the ball really starts. There's a snowball effect there. And I think that I would get pretty excited about the prospects for our team next season. And then truly, Billy Napier has no excuse after that. So incredible weekend from a recruiting standpoint. It is good to see recruiting back here for the Gators. It is great to see the attendance that we had from the fans, the atmosphere that we provided them, and already to get a commit to go along with it and Trammel Jones. We'll see if we can get some more here in the near future, but I like our chances to get a couple more who were on this visitors weekend. We'll see what that list looks like for next week against Ole Miss in the final game of the season. And then it's off to the races for National Signing Day. Can we take advantage of it? We're going to know really quickly if the NIL money is there, if the support is there, and the boosters and the administration in that regard, because it hasn't been there in the past, and I'm just going to leave it at that. It hasn't been there in the past. That's why certain guys don't commit to Florida on signing day. This is a business decision for a lot of people financially. It's really what it comes down to in this new era of college football. You may not like it, but that is the reality, and you've got to play the game. And Florida is going to have to play the game if they want to be competing with the Texas, the Georgias, the Alabamas, the Texas A&Ms, the top of the SEC right now. Ole Miss is playing that game too. I mean, Ole Miss over the weekend flipped a five-star wide receiver Caleb Cunningham. Lane's making himself at home there. They're playing the game there over in the Grove. It's time to play that game here in the Swamp. So really, really thrilled. Overall, just thrilled with the performance by this team, what we were able to do on Saturday, and hopefully it provides some momentum going forward for the Gators. Now, let's go ahead and get into some of the fan comments. We said that we're going to start doing this here on the show. So we're going to go ahead back to read some of our comments from our last show. Adam B6370. I have been as hard on Billy as anyone, but Strickland is the real problem. But if he can win tomorrow, beat FSU, and win the bowl to end 7-6, that would be real progress. That would justify more time. And the boosters portal buy-in, Strickland still got to go ASAP. Adam, I agree. I agree. And it would be a winning season for Florida to finish 7-6. Not the Gator standard. Let me reiterate, not the Gator standard. So please don't take this out of context that Chris here and we're accepting 7-6 and mediocrity. No, absolutely not. Next year, we've got to be 9-3, 10-2 at minimum to be competing for a college football playoff berth. Minimum. But yes, Adam, it would be progress. It would be a winning season. It would hopefully give us that momentum we need going into portal season and recruiting season for National Signing Day. And we'd get that booster buy-in like you talk about. Thank you for the comment, Adam. Let's see. Frankie Golden. Our defense seems to have really been hurt with the loss of our DBs to injury, with LSU struggling, with running quarterbacks and DJ likely unable to utilize the part of the game. I don't think our offense will be able to win what I expect to be a shootout. Well, Frankie, it ended up not being a shootout. And I think a shootout was probably the game we didn't want. But Florida limited the big play. Florida was able to limit the big plays to not allow it to become a shootout. And that was the difference in the game. Because, Frankie, if they did hit those big crossers, those big explosive plays over and over again, and they had quicker drives than what they actually ended up with, it could have been a shootout. And I agree. I think that would have been a game Florida did not want to be in. Solo 777. We have to beat LSU this Saturday. It's been since 2018 when Florida beat LSU. Billy should stay another year, and people have to understand Florida been down bad with recruiting with Dan Mullen and player development, so we can't be mad at Billy. Next year will be Florida's year. Guarantee it. Well, Solo, I hope so. I really hope so. And I hope that we truly take advantage of this victory now. Our first one, like you mentioned, since 2018 over LSU. Got to have it. Got to have it. Like I said, next year is going to be a really pivotal year for Florida. This comment was funny. I don't know if he's a Florida fan or not. Tyrone Chapman. The fact you solely blame Marco for that loss is laughable. Just ignore the 5 times we turned the ball over. Yes, that is true. That is true. Florida, Kyle Trask probably played one of his worst games. He threw that pick 6 in that game. So yes, Florida did some things that shot themselves in the foot, but the shoe throw, Tyrone, is the memorable moment. Nobody remembers the turnovers that Florida had that night. Gardner John. I'm so happy to see y'all Fairweather fans backtracking, but it doesn't take away from the fact y'all are insufferable to listen with your constant knee-jerk fire at the coach rhetoric. So lame. Well, Gardner, I think we're past that point now. Billy Napier's staying here at the University of Florida. And let me just say this. That'll be our final question for the night, our final comment read for the night. 2 things can be true at once here. You can be happy with the win. Florida fans should be happy about this win. They should be happy about the progress of the team from the first few games to now. The team is clearly better than when we took the field against Miami and Texas A&M earlier in the season. I wish the effort would have been there for one of those. Maybe one of those games goes differently. We can be happy with this, but it's still not the standard. And if you asked me to bet on if I think Billy Napier is going to win a championship for Florida, I haven't seen anything in the last 3 years that indicates that's a possibility yet. He's got a long way to go to prove that he can do it at Florida. He's got a long way to, and beating LSU, beating a ranked team is a start. He had an incredible visitors list on campus this weekend. But now you've got to get those guys to commit. You've got to have the full buy-in of the administration, the full buy-in from the boosters. And you also can't follow it up with a loss, a blowout loss to Ole Miss, or losing a game like Florida State. You've got the biggest problem with Billy Napier is he's never been able to maintain momentum. Like every year, Billy Napier has been good enough for one win like this. 2022, it was the first one against Utah. 2023, it was Tennessee at home. Now we've got LSU this year. That's it, though. I mean, this is only his third ranked win over a ranked opponent in his 3 seasons. And if you want to count LSU as a rival, it's only his second over a rival. That's not the Gator standard. And typically speaking, coaches do not magically turn it on in their 4th year and become championship coaches. There just is not a lot of precedent for that, historically speaking, especially in the modern era of college football since 1990. I'm not saying that Billy Napier won't be or can't be the anomaly. I'm saying it's highly unlikely. So, not necessarily a knee-jerk reaction. I think it's just or the way I'm interpreting this comment, it's just the data. It's just historical precedents. Hopefully we're wrong. I want to be wrong. I want Billy Napier to succeed at Florida. I think he's a good man. I think he has good intentions. I hope he turns the corner here, and this is the changing of what will be a really exciting chapter here in Gator history and football. But remains to be seen. Remains to be seen. A lot to be had, a lot to be said. But that's why we love doing this show. We love bringing this to you guys. So please make sure if you're not already, hit that subscribe button down below. Like this show, leave your comment and your reaction to this LSU game, and we will read maybe your comment here in the next episode. Closing out the night, though, I mean, this has been a positive week for the Gators, right? I mean, got the win over LSU for the first time since 2018. Recruiting seeing an uptick again. Basketball's off to a 4-0 start. Rivalry win over Florida State. Coach Todd Golden, 3-0 versus Florida State. That's what we call the Gator standard, ladies and gentlemen. That's what we call the Gator standard. So 4-0, Gator basketball playing very, very well right now. The vibes are good in the O'Connell Center. Hopefully they continue this season for the Gators there. And hopefully you guys continue to listen on to this show. Like I said, if you're not already, please subscribe. Share the show to your friends and family. I mean, I think word of mouth is how we get this thing out there. Please rate and review the show on audio formats. 5-star review helps us reach Gator Nation and bring you all more great content. We love the feedback. This has been a lot of fun to recap a victory podcast. Hopefully we have a lot more of that. We've got more great content for you as the week unfolds. Hopefully there's more commitments to talk about. We'll have Neil on in the middle of the week. And of course, we'll preview Ole Miss and Ole Lane Kiffin coming to town this Saturday in the Swamp. So from all of us here at the In All Kinds of Weather Forecast, I am your host, Chris Yanes. You can follow me at Mr. Crispitz. Thank you all for tuning in. Go Gators. And let's beat those Rebels.